One of the biggest groups of people I've been working with over the last several years are people moving from California to Georgia. So I wanted to take some time today to explore this trend and figure out, why are so many people making the switch? Why are so many people picking up their lives and moving from California to Georgia? So let's talk about California versus Georgia. I do want to say, as a native of Savannah, Georgia, obviously I'm a little bit biased towards my home state, but I don't want to come off like I'm dogging on California. My wife and I both have family out there. It's an absolutely lovely state, and in fact, it's so beautiful that I think people are willing to put up with a lot more hassles in order to be able to live there. So let's get going. California exodus. From the year 2000 to the year 2020, an average of 132,000 people left the state of California every single year, and many of them took their businesses with them. Once COVID hit in 2020, this trend just went exponential. And a lot of these families chose to move to Georgia. So why is that? Let me hit you with one of the biggest differences between the two states, and that is access to reliable and affordable energy. In Georgia, we just came through a major heat wave. We had 10 straight days of bone-dry temperatures in the upper 90s. Now, this is very unusual for June. June is usually very pleasant here, so it was white hot in Georgia. Total blackouts? 0. In fact, not once during my entire life in Georgia have we experienced any blackouts, brownouts, or operator-induced load shedding, which is the convenient euphemism for the utility turning off your power. Now, this may seem like a trifling point if you don't know that California routinely experiences summertime blackouts. And this is something that's been happening for decades, and the trend is only accelerating as California's grid moves more towards solar and wind power. Now imagine you're suffering through a heat wave and all of a sudden the utility decides, because they can't handle the power load, they decide to turn off the power to your entire neighborhood. Not only are you at risk for heat-related injuries like heat stroke, but you have about a day without power before you're going to have to discard the entire contents of your refrigerator and your freezer. That's big money. California is currently about 1,700 megawatts short of peak demand. That's enough energy to power 1.3 million homes. So rolling blackouts are going to be a thing again this summer, and frankly, the regulatory agencies are already warning people about it. Now, full disclosure here, we do have power outages in Georgia, just not man-made ones. When you combine these periodic ice storms in the winter and the gigantic thunderstorms we have in the summer with all of the trees, you get a lot of downed limbs and it will pull down power lines. The difference is, it's not a utility-induced blackout, it's not neighborhood-wide, and generally the power comes back on in just a few hours. So not only is Georgia Power more reliable, it's also significantly more affordable, which brings us to our next topic, the cost of living. You probably intuitively know this, but the cost of living in California is significantly higher than it is in Georgia. If you assume a baseline of 100, the cost of living index in California is 142, and the cost of living index in Georgia is only 88. Now, depending on what city you live in, food costs can be roughly comparable between the two states. One of the big differences is in the cost of gasoline. California's gas taxes are sky high, and as a result, gas is usually, $1.50, $2 or more per gallon higher than it is in Georgia. We talked about the reliability of Georgia Power versus California Power. Well, it turns out that Georgia Power is also significantly more affordable than California Power. When I surveyed my clients and asked them to compare, most of them came back and said something to the effect of, energy usage in California is slightly lower due to the drier climate, but the per kilowatt hour is significantly higher. One of them estimated that if he was spending $100 a month in Georgia, that same amount of energy would cost him $400 or more per month in California. The real difference, of course, comes when you start looking at housing prices. California at $844,000 has the second highest median sales price in the United States, second only to Hawaii. That $844,000 median is more than double Georgia's median home sales price of $378,000. That is a huge difference. I think for a state to be welcoming to a large body of people, housing has to be affordable. And when you look at California's housing prices, they might as well just put up a no vacancy sign. I mean, regular people can barely afford to live there. I surveyed a bunch of my clients while I was preparing to make this video. Just wanted to make sure I got their feedback, the direct comparison between the two states. And it was kind of humorous when I asked about housing prices. One of them referred to her former home in California as a $1 million burned out crack house. And another one told me her backyard was literally Los Angeles Airport. I'm not sure I'd enjoy living in either of those places, and I certainly wouldn't want to own them. Now, California has been losing not only people, but also businesses. Here's a list of all the businesses that have left California in the last 2 years. Keep scrolling, it's a very long list. Now, why are so many businesses leaving California? Well, it's a particularly unfriendly environment for entrepreneurs. Much of this has to do with the overall regulatory climate. That is, how difficult is it to start up and operate a business? They have one of the highest regulatory burdens in the United States. They also have the second highest corporate income tax rate in the United States. So California is not a friendly place for business. Now, Georgia, on the other hand, is consistently ranked one of the best places to do business. Georgia is home to many Fortune 500 companies like Delta Airlines, Home Depot, UPS, Coca-Cola. And there are a lot of other companies that have large regional hubs here like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and so on. And of course, I have to mention that most of Hollywood's film production is actually taking place in the state of Georgia now. I mean, what better contrast could you draw than to see California's most iconic industry move to the state of Georgia? That says quite a lot. Let's talk about water resources. You need certain things to have a comfortable standard of living, and water is obviously right near the top of that list. I've said many times that when it rains here in Georgia, it's like a lake falling out of the sky. It's really quite incredible to see it, and sometimes it's actually even a bit frightening to see it. We do get periodic droughts like every 5 to 6 years, but honestly, our biggest problem is, what are we going to do with all this water? To put it in perspective, 1 inch of rain across the entire state of Georgia is over 1 trillion gallons of water. That's trillion with a T. And when you realize the state of Georgia gets about 45 inches of rain per year, that's over 45 trillion gallons of water. That'll fill up a few swimming pools. Now contrast that with California, which is almost always in a state of extreme drought. I mean, 1/4 of the entire state is desert. Now look at this chart, which was just updated. Most of the state is in severe or exceptional drought. I mean, you have 40 million people living here and there's no water. That's a big problem. I mean, that's 40 million people that need to take a shower, they need to do their laundry, they need to do their dishes, and there's just no water there. I live on 1/3 of an acre and hundreds of thousands of gallons of water fall on my property every year. So I consider that my personal allotment of water. Obviously, I don't use anywhere near that much, but it kind of goes to show you, in Georgia, we just don't really have to worry about water. It's not a problem. Let's talk about beaches. No, I'm sorry, Snoop Dogg, I said beaches. California has about 840 miles of coastline, and Georgia only has about 100, so that means California has more than 8 times the amount of coastline of Georgia. They got us whooped there. I confirmed this by making this illustration, and indeed I was able to line up 8 little Georgia coastlines along California. Several of my clients commented on this. One of them said, the no beach thing is really hard to get over. And another one said, access to the ocean is difficult since it's 4 to 5 hours of driving. That's true. Your closest beach to Atlanta is going to be down in Savannah, Tybee Island, or maybe Hilton Head Island, but in any case, you're looking at least 4 hours, probably closer to 4.5 from Atlanta to get to the ocean. Now let's talk about peaches. See what I did there? Beaches and peaches. Of course, everybody knows that Georgia is the peach state. We're the globally accepted leader in the production of delicious peaches. For some reason, California thinks they can grow peaches out in the desert. And I'm here to tell you, if you've ever eaten a California peach, it's like gnawing on an old baseball. Georgia peaches are simply magnificent. There is no sweeter, juicier, more flavorful, or delicious piece of fruit available anywhere else on the planet, and we have them in Georgia all summer long. If you've never had a real Georgia peach, you're in for a treat. As I said, a lot of my California clients wrote back, gave me a lot of detailed answers. So I just kind of wanted to run through these really quickly here. So pros of Georgia versus California. San Francisco, cost of living coming from San Francisco was dramatically different. That's, I think, pretty obvious there. A lot more diversity in people than we found in San Francisco. I think that's an interesting detail because a lot of people would probably assume that California was more diverse than Georgia. But again, I think it goes down to affordability. Frankly, if you can't afford to, if people can't afford to buy a home there, there's just not going to be a lot of diversity. Number 3, we love the forests, trees, and lakes that we find in Atlanta and can be accessed quickly from where we live. In California, we'd have to drive 4 hours to get to Lake Tahoe. The North Georgia mountains are a real treat. We'd love to get up there. It's just a short 90-minute drive from Atlanta. We get up there several times a year, hike around, check out all the waterfalls. It's awesome. Number 4, Southern hospitality is a real thing. That is absolutely true. Southern people are warm and welcoming. They want to know you. They want to know about you, where you came from, your whole life story. They'll probably get on your nerves a little bit if you're not used to people being that friendly. Number 5, in San Francisco, tech dominated the culture where Atlanta still remains much of its heritage. Great point. Number 6, Delta Airlines. Got to agree. He said in California we had to use United Airlines, and he said, ew, Delta's a very nice airline. Number 7, houses are much more classical looking than they are in California. I have to agree. Atlanta has some great architecture, very, very beautiful homes. Several other people also commented on the quality of the homes themselves, the quality of the build versus California. Apparently California had a big building boom and the quality just wasn't there. And number 8, we love the Decatur community, which reminds us of the Bay Area. Decatur's a great community. Like I said, super friendly people, very diverse. We love it here. Cons of Georgia versus California, San Francisco. Humidity, although it's not as bad as we had expected. Check. Bugs, mosquitoes in the summertime. Yeah, giant flying roaches, all that kind of stuff. Issues, guns, abortion rights, and marijuana. I'm going to address that very quickly here. Georgia is an open carry state. I can't remember the last time I saw somebody walking around with a firearm on their hip. You're not going to see that around Atlanta. If you go up to North Georgia, you go to more rural areas, you might see that, but it's never any more threatening to me than seeing a police officer walking around with a firearm. It's just not really a problem. Marijuana. Now, marijuana in a lot of ways has been decriminalized in Georgia. It reminds me of the old Steve Martin joke where he said, hey, you better not smoke weed in California. They'll write you a ticket for that. It's very, very true. In Georgia, for the most part, marijuana has been decriminalized. I know in Savannah, my hometown, it's just a ticket. If they catch you smoking weed in the park, they'll just write you a ticket. As long as you're not lugging around a pound or something like that, it's just not really a problem. Number 4, although there's a variety of food, it's not as many options as San Francisco. And I said, well, you got to get over to Buford Highway and check out all the food over there. So I think maybe that was a little eye-opening for them. Maintaining a house costs more in the South than it does in California due to the climate. I talked about this while I was talking about water resources. Georgia is a very, very damp climate, and if you don't pay attention, you can get rot in your eaves, you can get problems with your foundation, things like that. So it's really just a matter of keeping your eyeballs open, paying attention to your house. Number 6, access to the ocean makes it difficult since it's 4 to 5 hours away. Talked about that earlier under beaches. And number 7, Atlanta drivers, no survivors. Yeah, people on the 285 here, especially, it's just kind of the wild, wild west. It gets kind of crazy. The police a few years ago really kind of cracked down on that. It's not as bad as it was even just a few years ago. It's much more under control. My personal philosophy is, when I'm on 285, I get in the right-hand lane, I drive slow, and I let everybody else duke it out. I'm not going to get into that. And number 8, this is the last one here. Some retail locations aren't easily accessible, especially since they're located in Lenox Mall, which isn't very safe. Lenox Mall has had a lot of problems with violence and, teenagers coming in and fighting and doing crazy stuff like that. So that's part of the reason that Buckhead is trying to essentially leave the city of Atlanta. There's a large movement there to essentially let Buckhead become their own city. All right, one other client, let's talk about this, that says they don't call it Hotlanta for nothing. That's absolutely true. Today is July 1st, and boy, it's about to get real hot here. One other thing is the big, massive, disgusting roaches that fly. What's that all about? You got to take, when you have a house here with all this humidity, you really got to take some proactive measures to keep the bugs under control, because, Atlanta's really a subtropical climate, and, we get a lot of bugs here. So you got to spray, you got to do roach bombs, you got to take some action to make sure they don't get a foothold in your house. Traffic is bad, but nothing like LA. So, Atlanta drivers, no survivors. LA has got the food scene in the pocket, but Atlanta has the barbecue. We certainly do have the barbecue. Love our neighborhood, and the neighbors have been very warm and friendly in Atlanta. LA people keep to themselves until they get to know you, and they tend to keep it surface. Again, Southern hospitality, it's a real thing. He says, surprised at how active people are even in this heat. Seems like it's more about keeping healthy than vanity. So this is a couple from LA, and in LA, maybe you're doing it for show. Here, you're just doing it because you want to be healthy. Let's see. The schools are great. My son's made some friends. The no beach thing is really hard to get over. I talked about this earlier. Gas and electric, much cheaper than LA. Groceries are about the same. It's more laid back in LA. Not sure about that. Atlanta's pretty laid back, but I'll check back in with him on that. So again, these are people, they've only been here, some of them less than 6 months, and they're really still getting to know the city. And one of the things I like to do is not just help people find a house, but really get to know things and really kind of find out what's fun and what's so great about Atlanta and what's so great about Georgia. So I hope this has been helpful for you. Again, I wasn't trying to dog on California. I'm not trying to run anybody down. I'm just saying, there's a very significant trend. People leaving California, moving to Georgia, moving to other states, but Georgia is one of the top destinations. And, I think it's important to analyze, why is that happening? What are the differences between the two states? And, maybe California can make some improvements, and maybe Georgia can make some improvements. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, you want to talk to me, feel free to reach out anytime. My contact information is in the box below. Again, this is Parker Smith. I hope this has been a big help for you. Thanks for watching.